Good evening and welcome to the regular Planning Commission meeting of May 10th. And could you take the roll, please?
Chair Suma,
Present.
Vice Chair Chang,
Here.
Commissioner Aiken,
Here.
Commissioner Liu,
Present.
Commissioner Heckman,
Present.
Commissioner Rekdal is absent, Commissioner Templeton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum, so we should, I guess we're not doing any of the instructions anymore, so we will move to public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
No, have not received any speaker cards or raised hands.
Okay, thank you for that. And then do we have any agenda changes, additions, or deletions? I'm seeing it shaking head.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, so then we will move right along to the city official reports.
Yes, good evening. Amy French, Chief Planning Official. We know that our council representative from the Planning and Transportation Commission for May is Ms. Chang. And we have a couple of items coming up. May 22nd, we have the SB 9 ordinance. And we also have the firearms ordinance. Let's see, that's to be published tomorrow. And if there's something in the, yes, am I too far from the mic? Thank you. I was just narrating the May 22nd packet, which is due to come out tomorrow or so. It has SB 9 and the firearms ordinance. And I believe there's something going on the 15th as well that I'm not staring at the moment.
ADU.
Yes, thank you, ADU. A lot of council meetings this month for Ms. Chang to represent Planning Commission. Thank you for that. And then upcoming, I did note on our packet anticipated topics items coming up for the end of May and July. So we're looking at for the 31st, we're going to have rental registry and the NVCAP project coming, and then in June, we have a housing project at 800 San Antonio and a transportation item about Crescent Park traffic calming. And then we may be able to squeeze one more item on that agenda. If not, that goes to the end of June. We have a couple of, we have parklets coming. We're going to be talking about ordinances in Title 18 that we're changing to adapt to the permanent parklets program. And one other project, 2901 Middlefield / Ellsworth. So this is a request for rezoning. So that's on the docket for Planning and Transportation Commission. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? So, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. French, you want to, I think the council last week dealt with one of the issues that we had sent a recommendation to them on the Yale parcel map. You want to report back on that?
And you were, let's see, somebody was the representative. Was you again, because it's May. Council did proceed to deny that application for the lot split. Yeah, and I don't know, Brian, if you want to add any color to that.
I think they had sympathy for the applicant the same way we did, but then I think for the same reasons that the commission did deny the application, but they did have a little bit of discussion about other vehicles that might be used to help them, such as rezoning. So staff is going to do some investigation on that. We'll see what happens.
Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to,
Oh yeah, transportation.
oh, Thank you. Didn't mean to ignore you. Mr. Kami, Director Kami.
Thank you very much. Philip Kemi, Chief Transportation Official. I'm just actually going to hand it over to Raphael, who's going to provide some comments per usual. I don't want to steal this from him, but just wanted to make sure we didn't get skipped over. I'll
Thank
chime
you.
in if
Sorry
anything's
about
needed.
that.
No, not a problem.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, so Rafael Rios, Senior Engineer with the Office of Transportation. Yeah, and I just wanted to give our updates mainly on a few projects. The evaluation of alternatives for Lincoln and Middlefield intersection. I know we've kind of discussed that briefly in the past. We're still doing our internal review of the study or report, and we're hoping that the website and that report get posted and shared with the public in the next 1 to 2 weeks or so. So that look for that coming soon. Another update we have for our Churchill Alma, the railroad grade crossing safety improvement project. The winning bid for that is going to go to council for approval on June 5th. And Commissioner Templeton, I think you had a question last time regarding the Caltrans pothole repairs. Due to the overwhelming or the size of the storms this year, Caltrans actually exhausted their budgets on the repairs, and they're currently looking for more funding to finish off or do additional repairs on that. Those were the 3 main updates I had for you guys. If you have any questions, you can.
Any questions? Okay, Commissioner Templeton.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that update. I have seen some of the repairs going in and agree that there's probably more work that needs to be done before we get to the major repaving project. I don't know if you've driven down the part in South Palo Alto between Oregon and Charleston, but it's I jokingly call it the Oregon Trail. Like, it's pretty bumpy. So if there's anything that we can do or that you can encourage the public to do that would help us get the repairs prioritized or funded, please do let us know, because we want to help. And I know it's not the city, but we do have to advocate on behalf of the city and its residents. So if there's anything we can do, please let us know.
Sure thing. And I do it myself, but I also recommend if anybody notices like any really unsafe or dangerous potholes, you can be entered directly onto the Caltrans website if you just search for Caltrans service request, and the first link that pops up is a place to enter it, and they're usually pretty quick to respond to real like significant safety issues. So
that's a really good point. Is there any way that you can work with the communications team to put a link to that form in the next city newsletter?
Sure. Yes.
I think that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Chang?
If I may,
Oh,
apologies. Just if I may really quickly, I just want to note that I did actually speak with the division District 4 division chief today about this, and he let me know that usually they can repair the potholes within a reasonable time, but unfortunately, because of all the heavy storms, the damage was just so significant that they spent all the money that was allocated for it, and so they're trying to work through, I think, their administrative process to get more funding allocated to it. I did let him know that if there was anything we could do to support, that he should let us know. So wanted to share
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for speaking with him. I would say that it has been, Santa Clara County has been one of the counties declared a disaster area by FEMA during the storm emergency. So if there's any funds there, that might be an opportunity to investigate as well. Thank you.
thank you. Commissioner Chang?
Yes, question for Mr. Rios. So regarding the report, or that the review and report that you said will be posted for Lincoln and Middlefield in 1 to 2 weeks, are you going to notify the public commenters who wrote in about that when it goes up, or is it just sort of up to them to check?
Yeah, we are beginning a to create a list of email addresses. So we can send a notice out to them. And then, I think we mentioned in the past, we anticipate following this up with a community meeting, and that would definitely go to the email list, and as well as mailers to the local or the nearby residents. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And for the record, Commissioner Rekdal has joined us. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. And I think unless staff has anything else, we're ready to move on to item 2, which is review and recommendation to the Finance Committee on the capital improvement plan.
Yes, we have staff from Long Range Planning. Chitra Moitra will be presenting, I believe.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Chitra Moitra, Long Range Planner. I will be giving you a short presentation tonight about the CIPs. So let me share my screen with you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So tonight, the PTC would be reviewing the 22 new CIPs for the year 2024 to 2028 for comprehensive plan consistency, and forward the findings to the Finance Committee as well as the City Council. So let me just discuss a little bit about the purview of the commissioners. The commissioners tonight would be reviewing the new CIPs only. The old CIPs have already been reviewed by the commissioners in previous years. And the purview of the commissioners is to make any kind of suggestions to the new CIPs that will increase the efficiency in the process. And commissioners can also identify any new CIPs for the next year if they feel that something is missing from this year. So these are the purview of the commission tonight. And the PTC chair would forward tonight's findings to through the letter, which is your attachment C. So to assist your review, tonight, we have the city staff from different departments, including budget, public works, community services, and utilities, police, to help you answer any questions you have on the CIPs, on the new CIPs tonight. And I would also like to mention here that tonight's review is the CIPs, and it's not the annual comp plan implementation program reviews which you go through during fall of every year. So this is different. So this year, the city department have started identifying new CIPs last year, like from fall of last year. And these CIPs, the new CIPs were identified based on the citywide infrastructure need, as well as the city council priorities. And the selections of these projects are made by individual departments, and that's based on their budget, on their staff resources, and on the needs. So this year, we have identified 22 new CIPs in the capital budget book, and staff has used the same analysis metrics as they have used in the previous years to align with the comprehensive plan. So each new CIP is aligned with the element, comprehensive plan element, goal, and a policy or program where appropriate. Attachment A of your staff report also shows that's the Excel matrix, which shows each new CIPs and the aligned goals, policies, and programs. To that, staff has also added information on what sort of boards and commission review is required for the CIP, as well as if any environmental review is required by the CIP or not. And the capital budget book, which we have distributed last week, that includes the individual project cost as well as the project timelines. So this year, the capital budget book includes 199 capital improvement projects. And as I mentioned, 22 are new. So this year, Commission would be focusing on only the new CIPs which have been forwarded to you. So let's talk about the whole the 199 CIPs in the budget book. Of that, about the natural environment element has about 42% of the CIPs, and the community services element has about 37% of the CIPs. And both land use and transportation sections have 7% of the CIPs. This year, the communities, this is the distribution of the new CIPs, and as we can see, 16 of the 22 new CIPs, which is more than 70%, has aligned with the community services element of the comprehensive plan, and 2 with the natural environment and transportation, and 1 with safety and business. So the next few slides would be some highlights of the new CIPs. And as we can see, the first one is the home key, Palo Alto home key facilities. And this CIP aligns with the housing element policy H3.5, which is on home reaching out for working with regional agencies for providing services for homeless and assessing their needs, and as well as with the community and services and facilities element for efficient service providing. The other 2 are the 2 grade separation projects, CIPs, which are aligned with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. The next lot of CIPs are grouped as facility improvement or equipment replacements. And these are like out of the 22 CIPs, 10 of the CIPs fall under this category. And all of these align with either goal 3 or goal 4 of the community services element, which includes maintenance of parks and community services and planning for more parks and community service facilities. The next group of slide is on parks and outdoor improvements. And there are 6 CIPs which are grouped under this. And all of these, as a previous group, aligns with the community services element of the comprehensive plan. And it's the same, more or less, the maintenance of parks and community services section of the goal 3 and 4. The last group of CIPs are including all sorts of utility upgrades and improvements. And there are 3 CIPs under this category. And these 3 CIPs align with the natural environment element of the comprehensive plan, especially the energy section, policy N7. So as we can see here, that all the 22 of the new CIPs discussed aligns with the comprehensive plan elements. And after tonight's review of the CIPs by the Planning Commission, the budget would be reviewed again by the Finance Committee as well as the City Council. And the process of budget review has started from May, and it will continue through June. And the final budget hearing adoption would happen on June 19th. So, so tonight, again, staff is requesting PTC to forward this finding to the Planning Commission, to the City Council and Finance Committee, based on the based on the comprehensive plan alignments given in the documents. And this concludes my staff presentation for this topic. And now Commission can ask any questions on any CIPs. We have city staff from different departments to answer your questions. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moitra. And I will open it up for commissioners to ask questions of staff. And then after that, we'll take any public comment and then go back to our discussion. So any questions? Commissioner Hackman.
Thank you. So these are just really helping me understand a little bit how the process works and the CIPs are broken out. So the first question is, there are 4 Lucy Stern projects, and I see that 2 of those are coming out of community services and 2 are coming out of public works. And so I'm curious, though, why do we have 4 Lucy Stern projects instead of 2? But why, for example, Public Works has 2 of them? Why aren't those 1? Is there a, because all of the descriptors are the same, and it's the same for the 2 under community service. So I'm not being critical. I'm just curious as to why they're broken out rather than, why aren't those 2 projects?
Would staff from either of the department volunteer to answer the question?
I can take that. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Holly Boyd. I'm the Assistant Director for Public Works Engineering. So yeah, it's a little confusing because there are 4. Typically, we don't come out with that many for one facility at the same time. However, given the scope of the projects, at least for Public Works, one deals with the mechanical, electrical, and I'm looking for the other Public Works one. We have fire curtain,
Right,
rigging, this community services, and then, yeah, the theatrical lighting. So typically, we try and group them all together when we can for one site. However, in this case, we left them separate. They could be on different timelines in order to track different systems and procurements. So we left them separately. Most likely they will also have different consultants as well. So there are multiple contracts. So it's just a way for staff to track it. We do try and group things together for each site when we can.
great, thank you. Next question. Is there any particular reason, or is it just coincidence that of the 22 new CIPs are disproportionately in the community services and facilities category?
The reason, this is the nature of the CIPs, which dictates which element it would fall under. And 16 of the 22 are related to any kind of facility improvement or park improvement. So that's why it falls under the community services element.
No, I understood that. But for example, if you look at the table on packet page 10, the CIPs we have the most of are natural environment element. There are 82 of those, of which 2 are new. The next category is community services and facilities element. There were 57 of those, of which 16 are new. And I'm just curious, so we're overweighted this year, if you will, on these community services and facilities element new items. And again, it could be that that's just a coincidence that a bunch of those hit this year, or whether these things tend to go in cycles, and maybe next year we're already anticipating, we're going to have a bunch of transportation element new CIPs disproportionate. Again, just kind of understanding the numbers.
Hi, again, this is Holly Boyd. I can take a stab at answering this. There are a few on here that were previously planned, but were removed during the pandemic years during funding. So for example, the Foothill Nature Preserve restroom replacement. That is something that we've been trying to get on our 5-year plan for a while, and we finally were able to bring it forward. And then some of the other ones, so again, the 4 Lucy Stearns they're gonna add up fast. And then we have Cubberley HVAC due to, the damage that was done in the gyms. And I think it's just happened just because of timing. Some of them are maybe just cyclical because of life cycles of systems. But I think it's just the focus we have given what was ready to be moved forward. I will note, like Rinconada Pool Family Changing Room was a previous CIP last year. It was included in the Rinconada Park improvements scope, but it was just brought out as a separate, just so we could track work done on a building versus work done to the park itself. So yeah, it is very building and structure heavy this year.
Okay, and again, no judgment on there, just curious, looking at the numbers. All right, final question. Are the grade separation projects, which are numbers 19 and 20, really new? Or are we just considering them new because they're being broken out of the 4-grade crossing project that we've already approved and, prior recommended approval in prior CIPs?
Thank you very much. I'll take that. Philip Cami, Chief Transportation Official again. No, they're not new, even though they're listed as new. They're really, this is a little bit of a complication in the terminology. They are a split of a prior singular grade separation project that's being split into different types of funding for them, and be able to potentially get an award for one project on its own and be able to move that forward. So we don't want any of them to hold each other up.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chang?
Thanks, Chair. Okay, so my first question piggybacks a little bit on one that Commissioner Heckman asked, which is, so this year we have 22 new CIPs, which is a lot more than we usually have. And I'm wondering why that is. Is it just kind of coincidence because we're splitting some that are not really new, or just sort of work streams the way Ms. Boyd was talking about? Or is it because there's a whole bunch of deferred work because of budget cuts during the pandemic, or some combination of those two, or something else entirely?
Thank you, Commissioner. Paul Harper with the Office of Management and Budget. I think you're right. It's a combination of all of those things. There has been some deferred things that, as Holly mentioned, were not able to be added because we just didn't have the funding for it. A lot of the dollars are coming back better than we have had in the past few years. So we are able to start entertaining adding some of these projects. And then there is a couple examples of things that were in there before, but just in there in a different fashion. The Rinconada Changing Room was highlighted, and then the 2 new quote unquote grade separation projects that have been split out from the previous one that was mostly for the planning process.
Thanks. Okay, my next question relates to number 7, the cardiac monitor replacement on packet page 18. And I guess it's also numbered FD 27,000. So I noticed that the cost is going to be incurred in fiscal 27, the full cost. And so my question is, given that the description for the item says that these cardiac monitor units are essentially outdated and are beyond their allowable usage, why are we waiting until fiscal 27? Or is it that in fiscal 27, they will become outdated?
Paul Harper again. Yes, it's the second one. Essentially, those, along with other equipment for the fire department, are on replacement schedules. And so at that point in time is when they are due for replacement. We can certainly update the language in that project page a little bit to clarify that that's when they will be out of date, is at the time of scheduled replacement.
Okay, yeah, I think that'll alleviate some concerns. Like, wait, shouldn't we replace that right now? Okay, great, thank you. Let me see, my next question is, for all the Lucy Stern projects. So I understand that they've been split apart, possibly for tracking purposes, possibly because some of them may take place at different times. So I was wondering about the implications for them. Does it mean that the theater is going to be closed for an extended period of time?
So I can take that question. Hollywood again, Public Works. So we're coordinating with all these projects, the mechanical, the lighting. There's actually one that's not highlighted. We're also going to be replacing the seats. And doing some minor ADA work as well. So that's more of what I'm just going to call in like the audience area. We're trying to coordinate that for next year. So they're all done at one time. So there hopefully will be one shutdown of the theater where no performances can take place. I am not as sure as for the other two, the fire curtain and the theater stage for the rigging. While they do rely on each other, we are coordinating with staff at the Lucy Stern Theater to make sure our projects do align. Oh, and I see Darren on here, so I'm going to pass it along to him to see if he can add any information.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. Darren Anderson with Community Services Department. I don't have a lot more to add other than we are coordinating with our partners at the theater to ensure that we're minimizing the closure time, that they're aware and can plan ahead of time.
Okay, thank you. And then sort of a similar timing question for the Foothills restroom replacement, item number 16, packet page 22. So it talks about 3 different restrooms being replaced over a several year period. And I'm just kind of wondering, is that going to be, are the 3 restrooms going to be done all at the same time or all at different times, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. So we're going to do the design for all 3 restrooms in the same year in FY26, and then stagger the construction of each restroom annually, 27, 28, and then 29, 1 restroom each.
Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, I'm going to try and go fast. The next question I have is on number 19 for the Meadow Charleston Road rail grade separation. So I noticed that for that one, all of the 115 million for the total over the 5 years is all for design and none of it for construction. And so is it anticipated that we're not going to be doing any construction at all for those crossings during the next 5 years, and that there's no possibility that we could move faster on anything?
Thank you very much. Yeah, Phil Kemi, Chief Transportation Official again. Yes, it's very unlikely that it would need to go through the engineering, the design, the right of way phase, which would likely take all that time. That's assuming actually things move quickly and assuming we're to get outside funding, which, just noting, that's the big hang up on the actual construction would be federal funding or some outside funding, I should say.
Okay, thanks. I figured, but I thought I would just ask. And then my final question is on number 21, the IT data center upgrade, packet page 24. So the million that's allocated for that item, is it just for studying the possibility of changing the data center space requirements, or does it actually allow for actual upgrades in our equipment or storage capabilities?
Paul Harper with Office of Management and Budget. I'll try to take that one. I believe the idea is that it is for studying and also for some type of reconfiguration of the space. I think the study will determine if the $1 million is enough to do that project. So that's sort of a kind of a wait and see, just to confirm that that dollar amount will cover both pieces. But we are hoping that that will be enough to do both phases.
Okay, thanks. I was just hoping to hear it wasn't going to be 100% purely study. So thank you. That's it for my questions.
Commissioner Rectal?
Thank you. First, a process question about the 5-year rolling plan. I know, like on parks, you would front load it. All the new projects would come in year 5, and every year you just roll them up. So most of the new projects be inserted late in the projects. But now when I look at these, a lot of these are early on. So was that just an idiosyncrasy of parks, or is it just because of?
Maybe I can help answer that one, Commissioner Rectal. This is Darren Anderson again with Community Services. It has been our tradition to move CIPs where they need to be. So if there was no urgency, often they would go at the end of the line towards, FY28 in this case. However, there are a number of them that have greater urgency. The timeliness needs to be addressed in FY24, and that's where it's placed. So it's sort of a reshuffling of the deck every time we redo the 5-year plan, and things get moved around. Perhaps in some cases we've done repairs to something that was originally scheduled to happen in the beginning of the schedule, and it could be pushed out, or vice versa. We thought we could repair it and it can't be, and it needs to be advanced.
Okay. So in general, we can insert new projects anywhere. We're not constrained to the 5th year.
That's correct.
Okay. Also, how do we handle projects that involve multiple departments? For example, if you have an area that floods, and that could be a transportation issue, the flooded roadway, or it could be a stormwater issue. So who would present that? Who would propose that?
Maybe I could just really quickly speak about some of the projects that pertain to public works and parks or open space, where it's a conversation. Both departments discuss it and decide which would be the managing department. And maybe Paul's got additional information, but I think that generally applies across the board.
Yeah. And for your example, for flooding, typically any flooding issues would be handled first by Public Works, but we definitely, because we manage the storm drain system, we definitely are closely work with transportation to see if there's any, if we need to make modifications to our storm drain system to accommodate larger pipes, more catch basins. We coordinate with transportation if any modifications to curb lines need to be done to the street geometry.
Okay. So for example, we had a lot of flooding at El Camino at University during the rains. That's a highway that's controlled by Caltrans, but it's our storm drains. So how would that work?
Yes, that one's a little tricky because it is controlled. So yeah, our storm drains are there. However, it's also their highway facility for El Camino, and they also control the pump station. So that's a little tricky just because of the number of storms we received and how much water we got. But towards the end of the season, I would say the beginning of the season, there was a short in the pump station. So they did have an electrical issue that Caltrans had to come fix, but Public Works does coordinate that with Caltrans as much as we can to make sure that we don't have to close lanes. But I know in this last winter season, it happened quite frequently.
So typically that would be a CIP, local CIP, or we would just interact with Caltrans and Caltrans do the work?
Yes, it's Caltrans' responsibility to maintain their pump station, and we actually cannot access it. They physically access it. So even though our storm drains are in the area, their pump is what moves the water when it floods underneath that underpass. So
Okay.
we coordinate with them. Yeah, we wouldn't have a city CIP to address that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Templeton?
Thank you. Thanks for that great question, Commissioner Rectal. I think we need to understand as a city that resources that we rely on for safety that are managed by another agency, that we need to make sure that we hold them accountable in the best way possible. So if our city is experiencing the downsides of poorly maintained infrastructure that's managed by another agency, that's on us to let them know that it's impacting us. And so I don't know why we don't have money set aside for that, but perhaps that's something to think about for future years, because we do need to have streets that aren't flooded and pumps. I did not read the large binder in its entirety. I focused mostly on the new things, but can I just ask if there was any money allocated for the Palo Alto portion of road improvements on road safety improvements and bike lanes on El Camino? Does anyone know if that's included somewhere in a previous not new project?
Thank you. Just to clarify, your question is, do we have funding allocated towards El Camino Real? Is that essentially what you're asking? Like are you referring to I'm assuming the repaving project?
To put it in context, when we talk about safety improvements along El Camino Real, what we hear from your department, Mr. Cami, is part of that would have to be city funding. So to improve the width and the safety features of sidewalks on El Camino falls on Palo Alto. Is that correct?
Well, no, that's a little bit mixed.
It's not.
So I'm sorry. So you're talking about the width of the lanes?
Any safety improvements whatsoever on El Camino that aren't the pavement?
No, well, to be clear, so to be clear for El Camino, sometimes if we were to ask for Caltrans to go above and beyond what they believe is necessary or what they're planning to do, then they would require us to fund it. To answer your question, though, just more broadly, we don't currently have plans developed for El Camino. El Camino, the current project there is repaving, although Caltrans is currently discussing the possibility of incorporating bike lanes into their plans. But that is a project that is completely funded by Caltrans. Our process for developing new infrastructure on El Camino Real specifically, or anywhere in the city, is to go through a planning process, which involves community input, community engagement, and then council approval. And so at this time, we don't have an approved environmentally cleared or anything like that project on El Camino. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, yes, thank you. That's exactly what I expected to hear. And wanted to ask it explicitly here so we can include it in our minutes that go to council, that there are things that can be done that require funding and community engagement that can improve the safety of El Camino Real. So those were things that if we were to engage with Caltrans, they would say, here's the things we are going to cover. And if we said, well, there's other things we want to do too, that we would have to fund that and study that. Is that right?
Yeah, but that's true. But also to note that this project that they're underway with, which is supposed to start in fall for repaving, like they asked the city what our plans were for El Camino in like 2019 or something like that. So they're very, very far ahead in this. They're not in the place now where they're asking for new proposals.
I hear that.
There. So
I hear also other rumors. So just wanted to talk about funding side of it, and whenever is appropriate, that's up to you and your department. But I think there's a need, a thirst even to have safety improved on El Camino, as it is a corridor that's crossed for numerous schools and that accidents occur there. So there are reasons we'd want to improve it. And I've also heard rumors of other cool things, but I won't get into that here. And then one last thing on El Camino, because this is a long-standing issue, but we had a discussion about drains at the beginning of my time, and now we're talking about El Camino. that drain that sticks out incorrectly from the corner of El Camino and Oregon, so where the AT&T building is a frequent cause of flat tires in this community. It's happened to me twice. And when I talk to the tow truck, he says he gets a call or two every day from people cutting short over the sewer grate that sticks out and makes a metal corner stick up.
Is that northbound on El Camino? I'm just curious.
It's towards 101. So it's where the AT&T catty corner
okay.
from the park, from the soccer fields.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Do we have any plans on dealing with who needs to fund that, since we're talking about funding? When I called Caltrans about it, they say it's our corner. And when we call the city about it, they say it's Caltrans corner. So as far as something that needs to be funded and implemented, this is one of them. I don't know if you're prepared to speak to that today, but I thought I would ask if that's included in any of these budget improvements or the Caltrans project.
So really quickly, I think Holly's going to want to probably jump in on that one, but just really quickly, I did want to mention that I was specifically talking about El Camino Real, but there are projects that we have that we do and are doing at intersections, specific intersections at El Camino.
Awesome.
So to note, we've got the Charleston Rastadero. One of the projects you see in the budget book, and I'm sorry, I don't know the number, but is our Churchill Avenue enhanced bikeways, which is redoing that entire intersection there. We had to get approval from Caltrans to do that, but we do have certain intersections where we're doing improvements at the intersections. It's talking about the entirety of El Camino Real or portions of El Camino Real that are only in Caltrans right away. That's where typically they have a process for their projects.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. It is pretty complicated, but I'm glad to hear you're working on those. And there are some school crossings that aren't those two you mentioned that probably worth looking into, but we'll move on to that later. Holly?
Yes. Okay. So yeah, El Camino, Oregon, Page Mill is the Bermuda Triangle, because
You're familiar with it, huh?
Yes. So I'm actually not sure. I know what you're talking about. The storm drain grate. I'll check into that, who it actually belongs to, because we got El Camino is state, Page Mill in Oregon are county. But if it's a storm drain on the actual state facility, it may be city. However, I will say that when you pave the street, you do have to go through and adjust all the grates and fix broken ones. So if it can't be fixed sooner, it will be fixed as part of the paving project.
That would be amazing. I have been trying every possible channel for about a decade on this one. So if you can get it fixed, it's a huge win for the city. Okay. Great. My last question was about the number 15 Rinconada Pool Family Changing Room, packet page 21. I wanted to say that I know some people in the special needs community who have wanted this for a long time, and I'm really happy to see it getting implemented. I know we had to put it off for a while. What's our confidence level that should the funding be approved, that it will get done by 2024? That's the fiscal year starting soon, right? This summer?
Yes. So if it gets approved, the funding will be available July 1st. So what will need to happen first, and I know Community Services has prioritized this one as the most important in that Rinconada area. So that's why it is moving forward in 24. We'll do an RFP to hire a consultant who will then look at options to design or repurpose some of the storage areas in that, but the design will happen in 2024. So most likely, and then the funding for construction is available in 2025 . So most likely.
So it'll still be a couple of years.
It's a couple years out, yeah.
Is there any funding available for a temporary solution so that people can enjoy this pool this summer?
We haven't looked into that. I don't know if Darren, you know anymore, but it's something we can talk about with Community Services.
No, right now we don't have another option. This is what we've got allocated funding.
So what do you do when you have a special need?
Like all ADA requests, they're analyzed and we do anything we can to try to meet their needs. So it's on a case by case.
Okay. And anyway, I'm glad it's being built and we'll have it in a couple of years. It would be good to think about options that people can have to enjoy the pool this summer. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. My questions have been answered, so unless my colleagues, okay, Commissioner Rectal?
A quick follow-up about county roads. Are we responsible for the maintenance? I mean, the county funds the county roads. Do they also do the maintenance, or are we responsible for that?
No, roads like, I'm trying to think what, I think it's just Page Mill and Oregon is maintained and owned by Santa Clara County, so they fund that.
Okay, so all the paving and stuff, that's
And
their
state
decisions.
road.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I think, I'm not seeing any other lights, so do we have any members of the public that would like to speak?
No, I have no raised hands or speaker cards.
Okay, then we will bring it back to the commission for discussion. So if you would like to have anything further you would like to discuss about this or a motion, I know we're all interested in the rumors you've heard, Commissioner Templeton, but we'll do that offline. So Commissioner Chang?
I did have one more that I forgot to ask. So for the scheduled vehicle and equipment replacement, we brought this up last year as well, asking if we are replacing with electric vehicles where possible, understanding that sometimes it's not possible for some of the vehicles that we need. So I just wanted to ask that question.
Yes, and I might call in Darren for help. So this item here is really just to add the fifth year, the 2028 funding for the vehicle replacement cycle. Although during Finance Committee yesterday, I understand that they did move, or at least they're going to strongly recommend one of their tier 2 items that was to fund more electric vehicles in that program. I missed that discussion, Paul, at the end of the day, but do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so Paul Harper, Office of Management and Budget. So one of the tier 2 items, which were the items that were linked to the priorities that the council decided and that departments determined were needs for next year. One of them was to move the city towards full electric vehicle fleet replacement. And the way that we are starting to do that is in the fiscal year 24 project. There was a recommendation to increase funding in that project to essentially replace all the vehicles that are available or have electric vehicle availability with electric vehicles. And that would roughly cost the general fund about $800,000. And I can't remember the total cost. I want to say about $3 million in addition, but don't quote me on that number. What the Finance Committee decided to do was to split that in half. So they are adding $400,000 potentially from the general fund. This is a recommendation that they're going to give to the council to deliberate. But yeah, the recommendation was to phase that in over a couple years. And so they recommend adding half of the funding for full electric vehicle replacement in 2024. And I think the idea would be that going forward, we would relook at the replacements for the future years and kind of update the funding needs in those projects to replace electric vehicles with viable options where we can.
I think so. Then for the current proposal for 28, is that budget that's proposed baking in 100% EV where EV is available or not?
It is currently not.
Okay.
So that would need to be kind of updated. I think the idea is to get council approval on kind of the policy to move in that direction before we start setting aside dollars in that manner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, all the staff, for being here to answer our questions. And do we have discussion, or do we want to move to a motion? Okay, that would be great. Heckman?
Thank you. I wasn't sure. I will move the staff recommendation that the PTC recommend to the city council that the proposed 2024 to 2028 capital improvement projects listed in attachment B to our staff report are consistent with the comprehensive plan 2030 policies and programs, and that our chair, Suma, sign the conformance letter, which is attachment C to our staff report.
Second.
Thank you. Would either the maker or the seconders like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Okay, then I just think we need to move on to a vote.
Commissioner Aiken,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Heckman,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Rekdal,
Yes.
Chair Suma,
Yes.
Commissioner Templeton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. And once again, thank you to staff. And we will be able to move on to our next item, which item 3, which is a discussion, which is really to align our bylaws with the BCC handbook. And because it was out of alignment, so that's the main thing. And because it was out of alignment, we elected the chair and vice chair before the new members were appointed. So the second thing is Vice Chair Chang and I felt like we should bring this up, and that if there was an overwhelming desire to revote with the new commissioners, we would have, the vice chair and I would have to step down, and then the vote could take place. If there isn't an overwhelming desire to do that, then we just have to solve the first problem.
Why wouldn't you be able to vote for yourself?
Pardon me?
Why wouldn't you be able to vote for yourself?
We would be able to vote for ourselves, but we would have to step down to re-vote.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I do not have any interest in changing that.
I know. Does anyone have any interest in? Okay, so Vice Chair Chang and I just felt like it was the right thing to do to bring it up. So we've brought it up, we've discussed it. So all we need is, do we need a vote on aligning it?
Well, the bylaws we would want to vote on,
Okay,
the bylaws, or to, this is Amy French, to change the month when elections are held to April. And we threw out April 15th, but it could be April 1st or as soon thereafter as is practical. And
okay.
I have a question.
There's a typo actually in the staff report. There was an ARB that was cut and paste.
yeah, I saw that. Oops, cut and paste.
Yeah.
Oh, unless there's any further discussion, we just need a motion.
I have a discussion.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Templeton?
I don't know how long it will be before terms and stuff are changed again. Hopefully it won't, but to save future planning commissions the trouble, do we want to say the first meeting after people are appointed? Or does that sometimes happen at weird times? I'm not exactly sure why we want to bake the date in.
It's possible that that a member would have to leave and then a new member is appointed sometime way before March.
Detail-oriented legal and procedural minds on the commission. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Chang and then Commissioner Heckman.
My understanding is our bylaws say that the moment that there is a vacancy, that we are supposed to fill the vacancy. So if, for example, somebody were to leave off cycle, then we're supposed to elect a replacement. Now, I don't know how that applies in the situation where, say, somebody leaves on cycle, but the city council is delayed and doesn't replace them with anybody. I think, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Mr. Yang is here. Hi, Mr. Yang.
Hey, so the bylaws say that if the, one of the chair or the vice chair of the officers' seats is vacated, then there will be an election to fill that office. And it also, the bylaws also say that officers will hold their positions until a replacement is elected. So, in the event let's say the chair leaves off cycle, and then the council just never gets around to appointing another commissioner, the first thing that would happen is that there would be an election for the chair. And then if, as happened in this case, the vice chair filled that role, then there would be an election for the vice chair. And those individuals would hold those offices for presumably, the remainder of the term, if there was some remainder that before the regular, cycle was up, or for a full year if it was on cycle that the election happened. And in the event that the PTC decided to delay their elections for any reason, those individuals would stay in their office until the next election happened. So we had tried to address this possibility that the dates would change several years ago when we adopted the language that's currently in there, which is that elections will happen the first day following January 1st, or on whatever alternative day the PTC chooses at that first meeting. And the idea was, if the council appointment schedule changes from a December to another month, then at that first meeting, the PTC would say, okay, well, let's have our elections in April this year instead. That didn't occur. It didn't make sense for that to occur this year because the chair vacated his seat. So I think we've built in the flexibility to accommodate, future changes in date, where, whatever day is specified in the bylaws on that day, the PTC could say, well, we're gonna shift the election to a different date. But since we are in this moment where we know that the appointment cycle is going to happen in the spring every year, we felt it just made sense to update it to say April instead of January.
Thank you. Commissioner Heckman?
Thank you. So I first want to thank the chair and the vice chair for their sensitivity on this issue and their offer to step down and have a re-election, because it really gave me the opportunity to reflect on my votes for each of them for those roles and whether I had somehow made a grave mistake. Reflect on how the two of you have done since you took the leadership roles, and decided with certainty that I did not make any kind of mistake. And so I'm happy to not have another election. I'm also interested in hearing from our new commissioners, because if either of them would like to have a new an election today, I'm fully supportive of that. On the issue of the language of our bylaw change, I actually had the same thought that my fellow commissioner had, that shouldn't we somehow in this language tie it to the reason for the date, which is the appointment of new commissioners. But what occurred to me is that we do from time to time have these off-cycle appointments. Our vice chair is, I think, an example, of one of those, right? A midterm resignation followed by a midterm appointment. And I couldn't figure out a way to capture that concept too in this language without just over lawyering the thing ridiculously. And so my thought is, I don't know that the council seems to do a pretty good job of appointing new commissioners for all the commissions on time. And I think it was really the rise of this handbook, these handbooks and this, process that the council went through that got us, that shifted the appointment dates. And I think we're pretty good with an April 15th date for the foreseeable future. And if 4, 5, 10 years from now, they shift the appointments again, we can change the bylaws again. So I'm ready to support a motion to make this amendment to our bylaws.
Commissioner Liu?
Oh, I just want to shout out that I also deeply appreciate the chair and vice chair. And if we were to have another election, it would just be so I could vote for them actually. I don't have a strong take on the language. Maybe there's some possibility saying like whenever 2 or more commissioners are appointed within a 1-month span, then we can trigger an election in the next meeting, and that could accommodate some flexibility. So if there's just one person appointed, we don't have to do the rigmarole. But presumably every cycle there would be at least 2 or more people appointed. So that would line up with the council cycles. If that's too convoluted, again, I don't have any strong take.
Commissioner Templeton?
Thank you. Just thinking back to the comments that Commissioner Heckman made about the timing. Our new commissioners had the privilege of working with you, with all of us before being asked about who to vote for. And I did not have that privilege. I remember having to vote on my very first night, terrified, I don't know people very well. Of course, I'd seen them a little bit in action, but not worked beside them. And that's just something to think about. I don't know if now's the time to change that or if we want to discuss it further, but I would say even like your second night would be better than your first night. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I just wanted to bring that up. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Rectal?
How does it work? Can we call for elections anytime during the year? Or are we constrained?
No, we can't. We typically do it on an annual basis unless there's a need, as there was when Chair Lowing vacated his seat. And then and then there was a vice chair vacancy. But I see that our attorney is here, so maybe he should answer.
Oh, so I was just going to clarify, when the date, whatever it is, January 1st or April 1st or April 15th, when that comes up, the PTC would be able to specify any later date, any time in the year that they want to have the election instead. But aside from that, there's not a process to, just have an election in the middle of the year.
So if we have a chair or vice chair that's not working out, hypothetically, of course, could the commission take a vote and say we want to reset and have another election mid-year, or that not be allowed?
Let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
Are you planning something? Commissioner Chang?
So while Mr. Yang is looking that up, I'll continue the discussion about what date we want to set. So in our pre-meeting, Chair Suma and I were talking about, should we say April 1st versus April 15th, because it's built in that we can decide. So technically, the new commissioners take office on April 1st. And then anytime after April 1st is when they would be on board. By saying April 15th, we basically guarantee that there is at least one meeting. But it seems like it might be more, I don't know, because when we say April 1st, as Mr. Yang stated, we can always push it back to a date certain. So it could be a norm of ours to just push it back by a meeting or two, or we could bake it in this way. And I don't know which way we want to go. I'm not sure I feel really strongly about it one way or the other, but I do want to make sure we don't have like a lame duck situation regardless of whatever so that's the only thing I care about.
I'm happy to keep it at April 15th, which was staff's preference. And since we have leeway to even delay it by a week or a meeting or two, we can do it that way. So I see that Commissioner, I'm not sure who went first, Commissioner Aiken and then Commissioner Heckman.
Thank you, Chair. No, I was just going to express a preference for the simplest option. So let's stick with the date certain as encoded, with the ability to make an exception if we so choose.
Commissioner Heckman.
So if I may be understanding or misunderstanding Commissioner Aiken, because I'm kind of intrigued by, now that I sort of understand our schedule and that our new commission appointments in a regular schedule, that's a set date, April 1st. And so there's a scenario here where let's say two commissioners term out. And we got it's April 1st, we've got two new commissioners. And if one of those two commissioners who termed out was an officer, then I think we have to have an election that first meeting. But if neither was an officer, we could decide to defer it. And so I like the April 1st date because that gives us more flexibility, which is what I think Commissioner Aiken was saying. The more flexible date would be the earlier date, because we can always push it out, but we can't, as a practical matter, I think we have to accelerate it. If we lose a chair, if we lose an officer, we have to appoint a new one. So I like that April 1st date for that reason. And to the point that Commissioner Templeton made, this quandary, you show up for your first meeting, you're asked to vote for an officer. I actually had that situation at my first meeting, and any officer election since, where there were actually two commissioners nominated. And so rather than being asked yay or nay on one person, I was asked to choose between two, and I abstained because I did not feel I was competent to make that choice, having not worked or seen their activities. So I don't know if that, again, it hasn't happened. There's only been one nominee each time since, and maybe that's more normal, but I am sensitive to that issue. And so again, I think that by setting our April 1st, that gives us this flexibility because a lot of times we have anyway, we can play with the date, we can push it out as long as we're not compelled to elect officers because one of them is vacated. So I like the April 1st idea.
Commissioner Templeton.
Thanks. Just wanted to challenge the idea that we'd be compelled at any point, like if both our chair and vice chair were absent because they are going on a cruise to Disneyland, then we would still be able to function, right? We could have somebody temporarily chosen to run the meeting. So I'm not sure that we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we're compelled to elect or appoint someone on other boards have been a part of. That's what we do. Especially if we're having our first meeting, we don't have a chair yet. We ask someone to run that meeting and then we have the elections. So it's just something to think about. I'm not sure it's a compelling situation. I'm not sure that changes anything about our discussion either. So throwing that out there.
You have convinced me that April 1st, April Fool's Day is the best. So if there's no further, I think that's clean and it aligns with the BCC handbook. And if that's okay with staff and everyone else, we can go ahead. I think we're ready for a motion.
I do just want to answer Commissioner Reckdahl's question. We don't have a procedure for a recall of the chair or vice chair.
Now we're ready. Commissioner Heckman.
You know, maybe it's that I like the silence less than anybody else. that I end up jumping up and making these motions, but when anybody could. But I will do it. So I move that the PTC amend section 2.1 of its bylaws to replace the January 1st date with April 1st.
I'm sorry, but before we have a vote on this, we should just check if there's any public comment.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Thank you for reminding me. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you for that. Would either of you like to speak to the maker or the seconder?
No, thank you.
Okay, then we can just go ahead and call the vote.
Commissioner Templeton,
Yes.
Chair Suma,
Yes.
Commissioner Reckdahl,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Heckman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Aiken.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Moving on to the last thing we have for this evening, which is just one set of minutes to approve draft verbatim minutes of March 29th. Do I have a motion?
I will move approval as revised.
Second.
Unless anyone wants to say anything, we could just take a vote.
Chair Suma,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Aiken,
Abstain.
Commissioner Heckman,
Yes.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Oh, were you here?
I wasn't here,
Then you
but
should
is it
be.
okay? Then I'll abstain.
Yeah. Okay. Should have.
Commissioner Reckdahl,
Yes.
Commissioner Templeton.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0-2.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much. And now we move on to commissioner questions, comments, announcements, or future meetings and agendas. So if anybody has anything to announce, Commissioner Heckman.
Thank you. So I got 2 meetings under my belt before the pandemic hit. And the commission, this room was emptied and we conducted our business by Zoom for a while. And then we started to come back. And I first just wanted to observe that tonight actually is the first night that we have had the full complement of 7 commissioners on the dais since the beginning of the pandemic. And so I'm really happy about that and happy to see us all together. My memory of those first couple of meetings was, in addition to a full complement of commissioners, we had a full complement of staff present in the room. And tonight we have Veronica, we have Ms. French, and we had maybe a half dozen of our staff appearing by Zoom, and obviously there are many conveniences associated with that. But I wanted to ask our Ms. French whether that is the new norm, or will, as we're now coming out of the pandemic for regulatory purposes, are we going to have more in-person attendance by staff at our PTC meetings?
I can't say there's been a policy set down that says staff must be in person. I know for the planning department, for evening meetings, some staff are, paid overtime for that kind of activity, and others, like myself, management, do not. And so it's more likely that we'll get managers here in person. But I think the rule for now is the liaison must be in person. So I'm in person. But the other staff, it's depends if they're going to be in person. Some prefer to be in person, and some, because of the lateness of the hour, in some cases they're working from home. They have children and stuff. So,
And it saves a ton of money on contractors too, right? Like, are they charging us while
there's
they
that
wait?
as well. We do have in our planning department, because of the nature of our work and the number of projects, we do have a number of contractors. So they do, maybe some of them live in Oakland or even more remote, LA. And so they're not coming in person necessarily. So thank you for observing this.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Then I guess I will just adjourn this meeting and everybody can go catch the Warriors game.